3.7 billion for a Japanese glassmaker. Tell me Apollo isn't just bored.
Oh, come on. It's a brilliant carve-out. They're finding actual value while everyone else throws money at AI.
Like Meta dropping 27 billion on server space?
Exactly. But the real theater today is Unicredit offering 28 billion for Commerzbank.
German politicians are going to absolutely hate this.
I already brought the popcorn. We need to figure out how Unicredit actually plans to pull off this miracle. The rundown: $27 billion for server space.
Dedicated AI compute capacity, Maya. Have some respect for the terminology.
It's server space. Meta is handing Nebius 27 billion over 5 years. I read the filing this morning. It's essentially a massive, highly glorified rental agreement masquerading as strategic M&A.
You're completely underselling the compute bottleneck here. Every tech giant is terrified of running out of juice. 27 billion locks up an entire ecosystem. It's a defensive infrastructure play, not just a server lease. If they don't do this, they lose the arms race.
Fine, but call it what it is. CapEx on steroids.
Speaking of steroids, or at least autoimmune drugs, Gilead is writing a $2.1 billion check for Ouro Medicines.
Up to 2.1 billion. The upfront is only 1.67 billion. That missing 400 million is doing a lot of heavy lifting in the press release. Ouro has to hit some serious clinical milestones to actually see that cash.
Standard biotech earnout structure keeps the founders hungry.
I prefer my founders slightly panicked, which brings us to Perfect Corp. They just hastily threw together a special committee to look at a preliminary take-private proposal.
Hastily formed special committees are my absolute favorite genre of corporate theater. You just know bankers are sprinting down hallways right now, trying to drum up a bidding war.
Well, everyone wants a piece of the action right now. Global M&A practically doubled in February. $550 billion in a single month. It's mostly software and AI, which, I hate to admit, supports your meta theory.
See, I'm not just a washed-up banker spinning narratives. The tape agrees with me.
Don't push your luck. But it isn't just AI pumping those numbers. We're seeing massive legacy industrial plays and cross-border bankrolls.
Oh, you mean Unicredit dropping a $28 billion bomb on Commerzbank?
Exactly. And Apollo dropping 3.7 billion on Nippon Sheet Glass.
Apollo shattering glass in Japan. I love a good corporate carve-out. We need to unpack how US mega funds are absolutely raiding Tokyo right now.
I pulled the Apollo financials. I want to show you exactly what they're buying over there. The big one, $3.7 billion for a company that makes glass.
And not just any glass. Nippon Sheet Glass. This is Apollo planting a massive, very expensive flag right in the middle of Tokyo.
It's definitely massive. It's Apollo's biggest private equity play in Japan ever. But I'm looking at this and thinking, why now? February global M&A deal value just doubled to $550 billion. Almost all of that is software and AI. And Apollo goes out and buys a legacy industrial manufacturer.
Because Apollo knows exactly what they're doing. Everyone else is chasing these crazy AI multiples, right? Meta just signed a $27 billion compute agreement with Nebius, for crying out loud.
Exactly. That's where the actual growth is.
But that's where the froth is. Apollo is doing classic private equity. You find a bloated, undervalued asset, carve it out, trim the fat, and print money. The Japanese market is completely ripe for this. Western mega funds are practically drooling over these corporate carve-outs.
I hear the narrative. I really do. But trimming the fat in a Japanese legacy industrial isn't like firing middle managers in Ohio. The corporate governance rules, the entrenched labor culture, it's notoriously difficult for foreign buyers to just swoop in and restructure. I think they're vastly underestimating the friction.
Oh, come on. You're underestimating the Apollo playbook. They've done this 100 times. They're going to shatter the glass ceiling on Japanese returns.
Please tell me you didn't just say that.
I had to. The setup was right there.
I'm formally revoking your microphone privileges. But seriously, industry watchers are calling this a definitive signal. Supposedly, this proves Western PE is finally ready to deploy serious capital into these legacy names.
They are. The yen is cheap. The valuations are practically on the floor compared to US industrials. You buy Nippon, you implement basic operational efficiencies, and you look like a total genius in 3 years.
Or you get bogged down in a 5-year cultural war with the board and end up spinning it off for parts that are voices.
So I am reading this note from the analysts this morning. They are saying global M&A deal value nearly doubled in February to $550 billion, driven largely by an insatiable appetite for AI and software assets. Insatiable. I love when they use words like that.
It sounds like a fragrance commercial, but honestly, the AI narrative is masking what is actually happening. Yes, Meta just signed a $27 billion compute deal with Nebius, but the real story isn't software. It is heavy industry.
You are talking about Apollo and the glass.
I am talking about Apollo and the glass. Industry watchers are pointing to their move on Nippon Sheet Glass as the definitive signal that Western private equity is finally deploying serious capital into Japanese legacy industrials. $3.7 billion. That is Apollo's biggest play in Japan to date.
It is a massive check, but I completely disagree with the analysts calling this a sudden floodgate opening. Apollo has been grinding in Tokyo for years. This is not a sudden trend. It is just a very patient banker finally getting to cash his bonus check.
I have to push back on that, Nate. It is a new trend. Look at the macro data. The yen is incredibly weak. Corporate governance reforms in Japan actually have teeth now, and these giant conglomerates are finally willing to shed non-core assets. Apollo is just the first mega fund to smash through the window.
Or cut the glass.
That was awful.
I know, I'm sorry. I could not resist. But speaking of smashing through windows, how about Unicredit?
The $28 billion bid for Commerzbank.
Yes, the political drama there is going to be incredible. The German government is not going to just roll over and let an Italian bank swallow Commerzbank.
Oh, absolutely not. Which makes it the perfect setup for tomorrow. We are going to be watching the tape like hawks for any regulatory pushback or defensive maneuvers from the Commerzbank board.
And while we monitor the European banking drama, keep an eye on Taiwan. Carl Zeiss is actively scouting for its next semiconductor supply chain target.
We will see if they find anything as interesting as their Brighton Optics deal. Spill the tea.
You cannot tell me the Unicredit CEO didn't wake up and choose violence this week.
$28 billion for Commerzbank is definitely a choice. A highly politicized, incredibly messy choice.
It is the ultimate banker flex. Attempting a cross-border European banking deal is the M&A equivalent of a land war in Asia. You just avoid it unless your ego is completely off the charts.
Or you have spreadsheet synergies that will absolutely never materialize in the real world. I mean, come on, Nate. Do you honestly think the German government is just going to smile and nod while an Italian bank swallows Commerzbank whole?
Honestly, yes, that's exactly the delusion I miss from my banking days. They probably have a 70-page pitch deck proving the regulators will love it.
Well, they're going to need a bigger deck. I'm watching the tape tomorrow specifically for Commerzbank's board to roll out the poison pills. The defensive maneuvers are going to be spectacular theater.
Speaking of theater, we have some fresh panic in the beauty tech sector. Perfect Corp.
The augmented reality makeup people.
The very same. They just hastily formed a special committee to evaluate a preliminary take-private proposal, and the Whisper Network is already screaming about an impending bidding war.
Hastily is the operative word. When a board throws together a special committee that fast, somebody is either panicking or somebody is leaking.
Why not both?
I need to see the actual bidder list before I buy the bidding war narrative. Every banker wants to claim a bidding war to pump the premium. Who is actually writing a massive check for virtual lipstick?
Hey, people are writing checks for everything right now. Global deal value hit $550 billion in February. The money is flowing.
Sure, for AI and heavy software. Which actually brings us to an entirely different kind of hardware hunt in Taiwan.
Oh, you mean Carl Zeiss actively scouting the semiconductor supply chain?
Exactly. Let me pull up what they're hunting for next after that Brighton Optics buyout. Tomorrow's radar.
Tomorrow, I'm hitting refresh on the Commerzbank investor relations page. Unicredit just dropped $28 billion on the table, and the silence from Frankfurt is deafening.
You think they're silent? They are frantically drafting poison pills in a bunker right now.
I want to see the board's defensive maneuvers. It's going to be a highly politicized, beautiful mess.
Sure, but I'm actually watching Taiwan. Carl Zeiss is actively hunting down the semiconductor supply chain there. They just bought Brighton Optics and are clearly not done.
Oh, come on. You're ignoring the biggest European bank clash in a decade for a lens maker?
They make the optics that make the microchips, Nate. Read the supply chain footnotes. It's a brilliant stealth roll-up.
Okay, banker bias acknowledged. But if you want real drama, Perfect Corp just hastily formed a special committee for a take-private offer.
Hastily formed special committee. My favorite 4 words in corporate filings.
It absolutely screams a bidding war is about to break out.
We'll see who blinks first when the market opens tomorrow.